We'll bring this meeting of Peterborough City Council order for Monday, March 9th, 2026. Our first item of business is our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we gather on the traditional and treaty territories of the Williams Treaties First Nation, including the Nishnabik peoples of Hiawatha, Curve Lake, Alderville, Beausoleil, Georgina Island, Rama, and Mississauga's Scugog Island. For generations, the Michi-Segig Nishnabik have cared for these lands and waters, guided by knowledge, ceremony, and responsibility. We recognize the ongoing impacts of these treaties, the injustices that occurred, and the enduring strength and resurgence of Indigenous communities. As we live and work here, we commit to reflection, respect, and meaningful action in the spirit of reconciliation. We next have the constitutional statement. The Council for the City of Peterborough recognizes the principles contained in our Constitution and in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We now have 30 seconds of personal reflection. And next, for those who are able, if you could remove your caps and stand for the singing of the Canadian National Anthem. Our next item of business is approval of minutes of February 2nd, 2026. Somebody like to move the minutes? Councillor Vasiliadis, Councillor Duguay. We'll go to a vote. Before we do that, Councillor Purnell is absent this evening, and Councillor Hickey is joining us via Teams. So we'll go to a vote on the minutes. And that is carried. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest at this time? Declarations? No declarations?
Mayor Leo.
We have no registered delegations this evening.
Mayor Leo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Mr. Yep, go ahead.
I'd just like to, through the chair and to you, I'd like to ask that we vote on suspending the rules. I got an email from a constituent at 5:15 on the way here with a very time-sensitive request that I'm going to move in under new business, short and sweet. But the constituent Dave Dame is here tonight, and he's willing to come speak to us now as a delegate. Because it wasn't on the agenda, he didn't get a chance to sign up. So can I please move that we suspend the rules to allow him to come speak?
We could move that if somebody would like to move that we suspend the rules to have constituents speak. Moved by Councillor Real, Councillor Burke. Any comments or questions? We'll go to a vote. That's carried. Just to let you know, Councillor Burke, I have arranged for a meeting on this issue in my office tomorrow morning around 10:15. But we'll certainly ask to come forward. If you give us your name and address for the public record.
That's this past Friday at the end of business day. I was emailed a letter by City Clerk John Kennedy informing me that the event permit was not going to be approved. In the letter, John cited 4 reasons for canceling the event. These are the 4, and John can certainly speak more if you have some questions of them.
Can't get it on my headphones. It won't
It would-
work.
The road closures would have to be full road closures instead of rolling road closures. Number 2 is the lead police cruiser could not safely do a U-turn around George Street. Number 3 is using the Spaghetti House parking lot for runners to gather at the start is unsafe. And number 4, running races shouldn't be on roads. They should be in trails or in the parks because of safety. So on February 3rd, I had a meeting about this event. The police were present, parade officials, traffic, clerk's office, parking, public works. Everyone who needed to be there was there. All of the matters above that were in the John's letter were discussed as they are every year, and no problems were cited. So at that point, I proceeded to organize the event as planned. I'm a small business owner at Runner's Life. I invested thousands of dollars of my own money, hundreds of hours of my own time and my staff's time in order to properly put on and prepare this event as I do. Only to be told last minute wouldn't be permitted. I wasn't consulted. I wasn't given a phone call. I wasn't having a meeting to address any of the concerns, just canceled. Had I been asked about the concerns would have been number 1 about the rolling road closures. So this is the precedent for events all over the world. Boston Marathon, New York City Marathon, Toronto shuts down Yonge Street. Basically what it is we're shutting down George Street up and down from Park Hill to Lansdowne. There's an officer or 2 at every single intersection. If it's clear, the officer will allow traffic to go east-west safely. If it's not clear, the officer says no. That's a rolling road closure versus a full road closure, which is you just don't go anywhere. And the difference between a runner and a parade float is, I'm not sure. They move at about the same speed. Number 2, the police cruiser can't do a U-turn just south of City Hall here. I don't really understand that one. There's 4 lanes of traffic. It's completely cleared. He's hundreds of meters ahead. Again, we've done this every year. He safely makes a U-turn. The runners continue into the parade organizing staging area, which again, we have full sign off from the parade organizer. They turn around and the police cruiser keeps heading south. Number 4, Spaghetti House parking lots not to be used by runnies warming up because they could get hit by people. I'm happy to just take that out of the equation. That was a private business. I asked, they said yes, but we don't have to use that whatsoever. I'm happy to take that off the table. And number 4, to put the running events on public trails and not on roads. Well, I'd like to think we live in a world-class city, but world-class cities they shut down roads. Berlin, London, Tokyo. Tokyo Marathon just happened, 46,000 people. They shut down the largest city on the planet. And I'm sorry there's urgency created by canceling this last minute. The urgency wasn't created by me. I did everything I was supposed to do in a timely manner. I got my permit in on time. I attended the meeting. No problems were levied at that time. And now I'm being threatened with canceling of my event 1 week away from the event. You can imagine how awful this would be for my finances, my reputation, not to mention just to have a city that has these kinds of events. George Street will be closed again from Park Hill all the way down to Lansdowne. There will be no traffic. It's the safest place in Peterborough to run and walk. Risk is infinitesimally small. And for this stable, safe event, again, we've done it 12 years. And I understand things change from year to year. That's why we had the meeting in February, because we don't just do it over and over. We had a meeting, we discussed everything. No problems were brought up. If this event gets canceled, I don't know what that says to anyone else trying to organize an event. Do business with the city of Peterborough, and they could pull the plug. I organize a number of events, and it scares me to think about this precedent. I know I'm asking you to overturn and go against your city staff for the words of safety, but I think after hearing my safety concerns, you'll agree that they're not really safety concerns. Thanks so much.
Dave, I just want to assure you there will be a full examination and discussion about the items that you've raised this evening. So I just want
Appreciate
to
that.
reassure you of that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any questions for Dave? Councillor Crowley, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thanks, Dave, for being here tonight. I know one of the things that I discussed recently with our communications team, and I think with Daryl, I think you were copying on it, was why don't we have sort of a Peterborough Marathon, every summer? Because that's the kind of thing we should have. And you would think that it would take place along the city streets somewhere in the city of Peterborough. However, saying that, your organization of this 5K was exactly the same as it was over the last few years, correct? And at no point were you given any sort of indication that, oh, by the way, this year we're going to have to do something a little bit different. Here's what you're going to have to do different to make this happen.
No, we attended the meeting February 3rd with all the parties in attendance. Everyone walked out of that meeting pretty jovial, pretty excited about the event. No concerns whatsoever. Every concern that I listed was discussed at that meeting, and no one had a problem with it. The police signed off on it. They said they had no additional costs, no additional cruisers, no additional paid duty officers needed for the event. They were quite comfortable.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for being here, Dave. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Dave, thank you. Well, thank you for your necessary attendance. Sir, could you clarify, do you carry liability insurance for this event?
Correct. $5 million of liability insurance is what we carry.
Okay, so it's similar than when I rent the arena, we're obligated to produce an insurance worth $5 million. So that's good to hear. Thank you. That was my only question. Thank you.
Sorry, and just to follow up on that, I have rented the Memorial Center ice for 2 hours, so all the participants are going to go for a public skate on me. I'd hate to cancel that as well, so it's a good family event.
Thank you for your work to date, and hopefully your work coming soon.
Councillor Real, please.
Through the chair, I don't know who to address this question to. I heard the 4 bullet points of why this being canceled. Can somebody from staff or whoever please direct me why this decision was made? Must be a legal type of thing.
Mr.
I'm
I think
missing.
Mr. Clerk can answer that. Mr. Clerk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, they're following the meeting referenced by the delegation. Technical staff did do a deeper review of that matter, and they had cited the safety conditions that were addressed here. So for matters of safety, the recommendation was to not approve the event. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Yell, you still have the floor.
Through the chair, to the chair, you're having a meeting tomorrow. Hopefully something can be resolved here before the marathon race here, hopefully, to everybody's,
Okay. Just to reassure you, Councillor Yell, we'll have a robust discussion tomorrow. How's that?
okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Burke, please.
Mayor Leo, thanks. Dave, thanks a lot for getting a hold of us at the last minute to push this through and being here. I ran a 5K at 21 minutes and 5 seconds. Is that a good time?
That's an exceptional time. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Well, maybe I'll see you out there if we can get it.
That'd
Get it going.
be fantastic. Yeah,
Thank
we've
you.
accounted for very fast runners in the race as well as walkers. Again, we try to open it up to everyone. And
Councillor Chica, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, through you. Dave, thank you so much for your articulate and clear delegation. You hit all the points, and I know Councillor Burke and myself just are really so grateful for your leadership as a business owner and creating community events like this, and having done it for all these years and fine-tuned it in every possible way it could be. I trust that tomorrow things will move forward in the way that we expect. And thank you again for doing this year by year, and what a difference it makes in terms of Peterborough being a destination for sport, for events that bring people together for good causes. Thank you.
it's my pleasure. Thanks. And I should say that every year we pick a different charity. This one is Right to Heal, which I know is one that's near and dear to you guys. So yeah, we're excited to potentially raise some money for them.
Any further questions for Dave? Thanks very much, Dave.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Our next item is consent agendas, reports to be approved under one motion. 10A. 10A. 10B. 10C. 10D. 10E. E. 10F. 10G. G. 10H. 10H. So someone like to move 10A, B, C, D, E, and F? Councillor Duguay, seconder. Councillor Faciliatis, we'll go to a vote. Okay, there we go. And that's carried. 10G, Councillor Faciliatis, please, the annual drinking water summary report. You're going to move it and
I'll move
you
it.
move it?
Yes, definitely.
Can I get a seconder? Councillor Crowley? Councillor Faciliatis, you have the floor.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mayor. This came up last week, and of course, I was kind of expecting people to speak to it just because this is my maybe 10 years in being a commissioner on PUC, where this is the time where you ask questions about the water system. But the Safe Water Act makes it clear that this responsibility does not solely go on to the operators and staff. So City Council has something called a duty of care. So we're responsible for oversight, and that means being informed, asking questions, and following up when concerns are identified. So we've received the report, which is good. I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we'll see if there's anything concerns to identify. But maybe and next year, a presentation might be a good idea, just so that it's more engaging that way too. But councillors are expected to take reasonable steps to understand the information before them and act accordingly. So, at the end of the day, it's really about safe drinking water and how important that is, and following through on our duty of care is how we protect it. But I'm just going to ask a few questions here, if I can dig them up. Through you to Commissioner Simonauskas. In June, July, August, it shows highest flow rates. And are there any trends indicating summer peak demand and increasing year over year? And if so, what implications might that have in future infrastructure planning for our water system?
Mr. Sebanovsky, please.
Certainly through Mr. Chair, summer peak demands occur primarily because of the hot weather and people using more outdoor water. Those trends that you see, actually the system is much lower in water production than it has been in the last few years, primarily because of two initiatives. One being the outdoor water conservation ban, and the second being installation of water meters. So this has resulted in actually increased spare capacity to plant, which will accommodate future growth if that's part of the question, as well with regards to the infrastructure within the community. The distribution network is also very robust with regards to providing water to the existing community and the areas that are identified for future growth.
Great, yeah, great answer. There's no real strain based off of that on the system. It can handle it. Okay.
That is correct,
That's
Mr.
great.
Chair.
And no, so given the emerging climate patterns, are there any anticipating or any changes to what's called raw water characteristics, and it's in the report of the Autonomy River, that might require future adjustments to the treatment processes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, staff do monitor both the raw water quality based on ministry requirements from water quality, temperature, and the quantities that are both coordinated and regulated by the waterways, as well with emerging concerns with various parameters within both the raw water and treated sort of secondary substances that can emerge in the water. These are monitored both in the existing production, but also staff are testing various treatment options that might actually improve water quality and ensure that continued regulatory requirements are met, both in the current levels as well as anticipated future changes in those regulations.
Another great answer. Just another question for you.
Please proceed, Councillor Vasiliadis.
So with Selwyn and Autonomy South Monaghan, they rely on the Peterborough's water system. Is there any forecast growth pressures in those areas that could impact the overall system demand and basically overall system and more demand on that system over the next 5 to 10 years?
Mr. Sebanovsky, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, any projects required for growth in those two areas, and I'm not precisely certain of those two areas, but I do know that within our DC background study, growth projects that are required for future demands in future plans are identified in that background study and would be constructed in a manner that would allow for the additional demands as those communities build out.
That's great. Thank you. Through you, Chair, just another quick question here. Were there any near misses, operational challenges, or emerging risks in the 2025? While we were compliant with everything, but from what it said, warrants council's awareness. Was there any close calls?
Mr. Sebanovsky, please.
Through Mr. Chair, no close calls. I mean, there's the usual operational challenges, typical water main breaks, and those sort of service interruptions that do occur. The processes that we have in place to respond to and remediate those challenges, those breaks, are well documented, and every event does have a paper trail to ensure that the water that is brought back into the system once the repairs are remediated is safe. So all that testing and all that overview is done as part of the MECP requirements and our obligations to ensure safe water.
Great. And just one final one. Is there any other additional briefings, training, or performance metrics that would further support council in fulfilling its legislated care of duty for drinking water and for its oversight?
Mr. Sebanovsky,
I know that there was a tour of the water treatment plants, which is very educational, but is there anything else that we think that could help us?
Certainly through you, Mr. Chair, the probably the most critical role that council has is to ensure that the resources are available to continue our safe water system. The report that was brought in late 2024, which identified a rate forecast, which was a background report, more of an information report, will formulate our budget requests. So that will be coming back through the budget process. And that's really where council's role in both staff identifying the projects and operational needs of the system and how those relate to the rates of the system and then ultimately the cost to the community.
That's great. And just this is a question I always ask every year. So every year, from what I've heard, we test the water 20,000 times a year. Is that still the case?
Mr. Sebanovsky, please.
Certainly through Mr. Chair, that is correct. Testing happens at all levels of the system, from the treatment plant, various process levels, discharge water into the system, at the reservoirs, and at various locations throughout the community to ensure that the water chlorine residuals are maintained, that there's no contaminants. Ideally, the water has the chlorine to ensure that bacteria does not form in the system. And just to add on top of that, flushing and sort of sediment removal of the water mains also does happen periodically across the system to ensure that there's no, or at least we can control discoloration and color and odor issues as well.
That's
Councilor
great.
Vasiliadis, you're
That's
in
it.
your 6 minutes.
No, that's fine. Yeah, no, that's an excellent
And
answer.
just to
Thank
let you know, the senior leadership team toured the water treatment plant today.
Fantastic. No, that's what I heard. So
Yeah.
no, very, very happy with it.
Councilor Real, please.
Here to Mr. Semanowski, just a question about what's happening with the aging infrastructure of most of the cities across Canada, certainly what's happening out in Calgary. What's the inspection, what we're doing in the city of Peterborough to prevent something like this happening? And certainly I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Calgary is going through quite an episode of crumbling infrastructure and certainly repairs that have to be done and then going on water rationing and all this stuff. So what is our inspection process for that?
Mr. Sebanovsky, please.
Certainly through you, Mr. Chair. Even from our conversations with staff today on our tour, a lot of our infrastructure, if not most of it that was vulnerable, has been relined, and there's a couple of relining methods that the city has used. This has been a program that has been going on for, I believe, over a decade as they were trying to update the system. And reports, even from this morning's meeting, are that our system is very robust, that there's a lot of infrastructure that has been updated, and the risks are very low from that perspective. Again, barring the general 20 or 30 water main breaks that we do see on average within a system. And just to provide that information as well, our water breaks have come down substantially over the last 10 years, primarily because of the remediation programs, and are well below what would be considered a national average. So we're doing very well, both on the security of the system and the robustness of the infrastructure.
Through the chair, I mean, one of the reasons why I asked this question when I was on the Kofi board, and certainly when we redone Ashburnham Drive, it was supposed to be the hallmark road, that would be all the streets in the city of Peterborough would be like this. I see there's another break in the road there. And I remember going to a person that had your job before that, Wayne Jackson, and asking why we've had 5 water breaks on Ashburnham Drive. And he says, because the PUC at the time decided not to put new pipes in the ground. And that was the impetus for bringing water in-house, that we would have control over when we do a road. We actually put the water mains in to augment this break, because I just noticed another break in the road on Ashburnham Drive. So thank you very much.
Mr. Sebanovsky, do you want to give a quick reply to that?
Certainly, there is definitely benefit in having the water system in-house, and we are seeing the increased coordination and working together both from an operational capital delivery perspective and project planning. So those benefits are definitely part of this integration. As well, we're also finding ways to leverage those resources, those people in that organization, to help us in other areas in the city. So it's been a win-win for us for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Sebanovsky. Any further comments on this? It's been duly, sorry, Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. I'll be very quick. To Councillor Vasiliadis, your comments. Thank you. 4 of us had opportunity, 4 councillors, to recently attend a tour conducted by Lauren Daynard and his staff, Councillor Crowley, Councillor Lucica, Councillor Baldwin, and myself. It was extremely informative, and I said at the last meeting that, without being oversimplifying, being cute, but we just turn on our taps and water comes out, and we assume everything's working, and it is working. Correspondingly, what I think we should also be doing is a similar tour at the water treatment plant. Councilor Vasiliad, I think you raised a good point about annual presentations, and if there's one done, perhaps we could have it done jointly with Orca, because Orca has influence with upstream influences by way of source water protection. Rather than two presentations, let's have one. But I'd like to say again, kudos to staff for organizing that tour, and I hear senior leadership was there. We heard about, for example, references made to Calgary. Well, one of the problems, Calgary, one of the reasons their system broke, they just put in inferior infrastructure. We are looking at our lining program and other measures. As Councillor Riel has also said, we need to do it right. We have control, so we're in a position to make sure it's done right. Even though some of our infrastructure is old, it's still working, and it being managed carefully by a very vigilant and conscientious group. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Councillor Burke, please.
Thanks, Mayor Leo. 3 to Commissioner Simonovsky. Elmar, thanks for letting us know about the state of our infrastructure and how that's being managed. Bit of a wild card question for you, but a lot of renters and tenants in Town Ward, both commercial and residential, are on the receiving end of good infrastructure, but some of the buildings still have lead pipes. Is there any policy that you're aware of or grants for the private sector to sort of help change over that old infrastructure and give everybody access to clean drinking water?
Mr. Simonovsky, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of on the private side, but I'm happy to look into it and report back to the councillor.
Thank you very much. That's all.
Any further questions on this item? It's been moved in second. We'll go to a vote. Sir. Strong. That is carried. Councillor Beamer, you're moving the 1110H.
Yes, speaking to.
Do we have a seconder to get on the table? Councillor Burke. Okay, Councillor Beamer, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and I'd move an amendment to the main motion, and I've sent it to the clerk today. I think actually I sent it to all my colleagues. That pilot area number 2, Parkland subdivision off Milroy, be excluded from the on-street parking permit pilot study. And I believe Councillor Hakey will second it, and if he does, if I could speak to it.
I think Councillor Hickey, yes, seconded. Go ahead, Councillor Beamer.
Thank you, Mary Lil. So just quickly, as I mentioned last week, Parklands is, in my opinion, not appropriate for this on-street parking pilot program. We have all received a significant amount of emails and calls and photos and videos in strong opposition from the residents in Parklands over this pilot program. As I mentioned last week, the streets in this subdivision are very narrow. These are not your regular width city streets that we see throughout the community. Under new urbanism that was approved in 2011, this is a subdivision with very narrow streets. We've not only received emails, Mayor Leo, but we've also received photos and even a video of a bus not being able to pass through one of the narrow streets because there were 2 cars parked on the side of the road. In this video, this bus not being able to drive through the street was not a one-time event that just happened to happen in a very timely manner. This is actually rather consistent in this neighborhood where buses, large trucks, emergency vehicles, and city vehicles cannot get down the road because there's cars parked on both sides of the narrow streets. The subdivision simply wasn't designed wide enough to accommodate many cars parked on the side of the street. On-street parking has already been one of the residents' main concerns over the years, as it makes driving through the neighborhood difficult. As I mentioned, when vehicles are parked directly across from each other on the side of the street, the road becomes literally impassable because of the narrow streets. Garbage trucks, buses, emergency vehicles have to back up. And as I said, this situation's not uncommon. When you add snowbanks in, it makes it even worse. So Mayor Lil, certainly the residents of Parklands over the past 12 days have been very vocal in their opposition of this pilot project. I didn't support it last week, and thus the amendment to remove Parklands from the on-street parking permit pilot study we can proceed with the other two neighborhoods and we can proceed with the study overall. But we'll just exclude parklands from this pilot project, Mayor Leal. I think the narrow streets just make it not an appropriate subdivision for this on-street parking permit. So thank you for listening, Mayor Leal.
Thanks very much. Councillor Bieber. To the amendment, I have Councillor Burke, then Councillor LaChica. Councillor Burke, please. To the
Thank you, Mayor
amendment.
Leal. Through you to Commissioner Nelson, please. Commissioner Nelson, when was the we approved the pilot project, the 3 locations that, sorry, we council gave staff the authority to go ahead with the consultant and determine the 3 pilot locations. That's in the report, but there's no date attached to that. When did council make that decision?
Mr. Nelson, please.
Through the chair, I'm just looking at, because I was actually discussing that with staff earlier today, and I'm just pulling up which report it was, and I apologize, I didn't have an opportunity to look at that report. So as we're talking,
It's report IPG PL 23-001.
I believe it was 003.
Just reading from the report.
Yes. So unfortunately, it sounds as if I think we may have, and I'm just going to confirm with my colleague in terms of if that was the typo that was. So it should have actually been report IPG PL 23-003, which was on October 30th of 2023 report, and it was reviewing the residential parking standards review.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. And colleagues, this is my issue with this. This is my huge issue with this report, is that we had, all of us that represent our wards had a lot of feedback on these pilot zones as they were presented to us. Obviously, none of us are against the idea of having a parking pilot program. But what is extremely frustrating is that we've just heard October 2023 until now, staff and the consultant CIMA Plus have had all that time to, as they're working on this project, to come to us as councillors or the neighborhoods for consultation. You saw last week what happened in a 15-minute discussion about this report. When we've heard where it's going to be, it erupted. We all had ideas that are different than a dogmatic way of a consultant looking at a computer and looking at data. We represent the real people that live there. We are driving our cars and walking through these neighborhoods. We live in our wards. And it's extremely frustrating to me that given all this time we've had to do this, granted that there's a lot of work that goes into it, that this report came back to us and put all of us around this table between a rock and a hard place, because we've all had ideas on amendments we could make to tweak the program to better fit our constituents. And in response to that, we're told that there's not enough time. That's frustrating to me as a councillor. And what's also frustrating is that in the week that we've had between general committee and council, I talked to Director Boland, I sent an email to CAO Reyna, and all of you, where I had very specific questions that I wanted our staff to really ask the consultant what their capacity was, because we heard in a very vague way that we can't change anything, it's too late. But I wanted staff to at least ask the question to the consultant to say, hey, we're getting a lot of pushback here for certain areas. Is there any option for us to tweak this program and still meet the HAF deadline? And so it's frustrating to me that we don't even, those questions weren't even asked. Those questions weren't even asked. So our staff are telling us we don't have time. But what we do know is that this report was validated and given to senior staff in 2023. And we're being asked to approve it a couple weeks before our deadline. That's a problem. And the second problem is that no one from our staff even asked the consultant the question whether or not they could do this. My amendment wanted to just add 2 blocks to the thing. I was told, no, we can't do it. There's not enough time. The councillors in the north end had a very reasonable reaction to what they saw in the report. We're told it's not enough time. The councillors to my left also said, you know, hey, East City, you guys can have it if you want, but we're told there's not enough time. So this is not a question. This is just me venting my frustration, because I believe that we could have made this program into something that would have worked for everybody if we were given enough time to do so, but we don't have enough time. And so almost out of principle, I'm going to support Councillor Beamer's amendment. I understand what it's like to be a counselor and to have to support ideas from staff that don't fit the people that you're representing, and I take that to heart and I support the amendment. Thank you.
Councillor Chica to the amendment, please. And then Councillor Crowley to the amendment. Councillor Chica.
Thank you very much, through you, Your Worship. Appreciating what my two colleagues have been speaking about. It's been an interesting week being out and about because neighbors have been paying attention to the initiation of the pilot program. And, you know, as town ward councilors and as a resident of the Avenues, people have asked me the question, and if I could, if you don't mind, Commissioner Nelson or Mr. Dunsford, in terms of, we have very, very narrow streets as well. And there is signage that has to do with periods of time where you can't park on one side of the street currently. I guess because of street cleaning, various things, is that correct, Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Nelson, please.
Through the chair, what you're referring to typically is calendar parking,
Yeah.
in which it distributes the quality of the ability to park in front of your home from the 1st to the 15th of the month versus
Right.
the 15th to the 30th of the month. It just switches sides of the street.
Thank you for that. But does that currently permit parking on both sides of the street at the present time?
Commissioner Nelson, please.
Through the chair, in accordance with that calendar parking requirement. In other words, typically you would be allowed to park on one side of the street from the 1st to the 15th, and then you'd be allowed to park on the other.
Thank you for that clarification. And just supplemental to that then, when the pilot is you know, activated, will there be a thought to the issue of permits populating both sides of the street and creating unreasonable congestion for people getting in and out of their driveways in such a high density area like the Avenues? That's been a concern that's come up. And I guess I just wanted the assurance that that would be taken into consideration so that hopefully we'd glean something that makes sense in terms of one side of the street being permitted. That was the question, and I do support, you know, if it doesn't impede our funding, what the principle that Councillor Beamer has raised. I think it's valid. We could exclude something without losing funding. But if I could, just in answer to that question about the two sides of the street. Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson, please.
Through the chair, I did respond to Councillor Burke's email earlier today, and in that response, the same comment in which the on-street pilot permit parking program will not create new parking spaces. It will only permit spaces that already legally exist. So therefore, it will not impede additional challenges with parking if they don't already exist. So argumentatively, what you're asking is, will the pilot permit parking system create additional parking challenges? The answer should be no, because if those challenges don't already exist, then, because we're not permitting any new parking spots, it's basically permitting already legal parking spaces is what's being proposed, only that it would allow people to park for the longer than the 3-hour limit. So that's the only adjustment that would be proposed or made.
And if there is anything gleaned, if I may, through you, Chair, around there being a higher density because of the permits, like if a homeowner gets up to 3 permits that might be available to them, it would mean that there is, even though there were permissible spots to park, in our current situation, there were not necessarily full streets both sides, but it could create a situation where there would be higher density. I'm sure all those factors would be taken into consideration, I'm assuming, and that council would be able to give feedback because we're going to be able to do that as we go forward.
Mr. Nelson, please.
Through the chair, you're absolutely correct. And this is the data and the information that's looked to be collected and sought after as part of the pilot program.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Crowley to the amendment, please, and then Councillor Baldwin, then Councillor Real. Councillor Crowley, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I believe Councillor LaChica touched on a couple of things that I just wanted to expand on if I could. The first one was with Councillor Beamer's amendment, does that jeopardize the HAF funding in any way? Removing parklands?
Commissioner Nelson, please.
Through the chair, I'm not going to commit 100% to whether it will or will not. The commitment that the city has made is that it would study 3 pilot areas. If it's council's will to remove the parklands area, staff would look to try and figure out a mechanism under which we could split one of the other 2 areas, probably the pilot area number 3, split it into 2. So we're still offering 3 parking areas. Expansion of any of the parking areas would be challenging because there is a significant amount of data collection and details that need to be collected in order to be in a position to start to operate the pilot areas. So from that perspective, if one of the areas, as I say, if it's council's will to remove one of the areas, the attempt would be made to split one of the other areas, as I say, probably pilot area or pilot area number 3. And therefore we could still offer those 3 areas. But at this time, I can't for certainty commit one way or the other will or will not impact our HAF funding. We should still be meeting those criteria, but again, I'm not going to commit at this point one way or the other.
Okay. So not, okay, I'll leave it at that. Okay, thank you very much. Another question, if I may. So what I got from this is similar to what I've heard already, which is it's not going to lead to an explosion of parking. But I think that what this has done is, at least in the West End, I know Don and I are receiving a lot more emails about this, as Councillor Beamer and Hakey have received a lot more about their area. I've received a lot of information about people saying certain streets in our ward are now, they're too small. The width isn't there. And I had a great conversation with Peter Mallon the other day, and he was mentioning that there is a potential for a traffic technical committee and a website where residents could say, I have a problem with my street. Here's the problem. It should be calendar parking. I think that while it's not going to lead to an explosion of street parking, but like you said, it's just permitting the vehicles that are going to be there for potentially longer than 3 hours. I think it's highlighting the fact that there are a few streets in every ward, at least in our ward anyway, that are struggling with having cars on both sides of the street. And is it appropriate, and I think I might be getting off topic a little bit, and forgive me, Your Worship, is there a way that we can with a little bit more immediacy, reach out to staff and say, we have a street here that is struggling with traffic on both sides, or cars on both sides of the street? Is it something that we can have staff look at and maybe begin the process now instead of waiting until April or whenever the TTC comes online? Is that something that we can look at? Because I think that's what we're hearing with this. I don't think the issue is the report. Certainly for me, the issue is in the report. It's a great revenue generation tool. It's a great idea for those people who want to stay on the street longer. But we're getting a little bit of pushback in a different roundabout way. So I just wanted to stress that.
So Councillor Crowley, one of the things you may attempt to do is get a petition from a local street for calendar parking. And then that petition, if people support it, would go to the traffic technical committee, then they would go back with a recommendation to bring in calendar parking.
I understand that. I know that the technical committee isn't online right now.
Soon.
Absolutely.
Mr. Nelson, please.
Through the chair, yeah, I think, that discussion gives an avenue into basically initiating. Even prior to that, residents always still had that same avenue to bring that forward to the parking division, in which if they had concerns and complaints and such, parking staff then would complete a survey to review it, which we've done on a number of other various locations. For I think last fall we did one out on Hetherington, right? Was a prime example where there was concerns with vehicles parked on both sides. That was reviewed, come up with the determination that it should be calendar parking. Again, obviously, the winter that we've just come through really illustrates some issues as well, right? Because we're just trying to find places to put the snow, and that has its own impact of narrowing the streets in as well, which then can accentuate some of those parking challenges. But from that perspective, absolutely. The challenge is again, it does come back to what do we have for staff resources and the ability to review them. And it's not something that you can just go out and look at the street and say, oh yeah, this has a problem.
Right.
You have to do some data collection and confirm, or otherwise we're chasing our tails every
Right.
day.
Have I hit my limit yet, Your Worship?
Close to it.
I'm going to ask it anyway. I'll just barrel ahead. For new subdivisions, that haven't been yet taken over by the city, are they still able to have calendar parking on them? For example, I'm speaking to the Lily Lake Road
We are
subdivision.
straying a little bit here, Councillor Crowley.
That's my question. I'm waiting for an answer.
Well, we're
Thank
straying.
you, Your Worship.
Quickly, Commissioner Nelson,
Through the chair, typically it takes some time because once we have build out and the subdivision is turned over to the city, then the formal parking signs get installed. Because otherwise, the challenge being if you put the formal parking signs in ahead of time, they end up having to get destroyed during the construction process. So as a result, we're still in the process of putting some of those signs in those various as a result of the assumption by the city to get those. And then at that time, if beyond that, then there's, the complaints are such that calendar parking is desired, but based on the width of some of the streets, probably calendar parking is already proposed.
and Councillor Crowley, you know that with Councillor Vasiliadis and Councillor Real, they'll show great due diligence in their assignment on that committee. Councillor Baldwin, please.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I had a delightful chat with Councillor Beamer this morning. I am going to support his amendment. The reason being, we've already gleaned a lot of data and information from the people that live in the parklands. I think it'd be a waste of time and money and effort to go up there and do a pilot on that in that particular street when we already know the result. My question was going to be through you, Your Worship, to Commissioner Nelson. I like the idea of splitting the zone. I think that might be the workaround around that. The other alternative I had was going to suggest perhaps the North Crest councillors would have an alternate street or two that might be pivoted, like McClellan Street, and perhaps another one. But is that a possibility, Commissioner, rather than splitting? Or I'm okay with your answer. I just thought I'd ask the question.
Commissioner Nelson, please.
Through the chair. Again, the initial three areas were picked so that it give the widest spread of attributes of street types, zonings, etc. And that was why they were selected. So as a result, the consultant has already done a certain amount of background work on those areas to inventory, attribute, and basically have the data that's already available to start up the program. So the challenge there would be is that to do it, we just wouldn't be meeting our timeline here for the end of the month and have it up and running. So from that, my answer is I would not recommend that, in that we stay with the current areas that we have and split it. Not to say that there isn't, if we need future, we expand, but again, that's the purpose of the pilot, is to start to collect some of that feedback and understand what are the challenges. But in this circumstance now, if we remove the parklands, we'll just have a reduced basically lens that we'll be looking at. So
understood. Second question I have with respect, Your Worship, to Commissioner Nelson. Blair, any type of pilot project recommendations? I'm going to assume that an enforcement piece will be part of the final report for council's considerations. There's no sense making a whole bunch of recommendations and then forgetting the enforcement piece. So could you speak to that a little bit? Commissioner Nelson, please.
Through the chair, yes, enforcement will provide input and feed into the pilot program and the recommendations and the results and their ability to enforce and or basically agree with the components moving forward and or if there's need for additional resources or adjustments to their process. That would all factor into part of the outcome and the recommendations to council.
Councillor Baldo, do you want to use your second 3 minutes now?
I've used 3 minutes already, your worship.
According to our
Boy,
timer.
the clock over on the other side of the council chamber seemed to be going a lot slower than mine, but I will use my other 3 minutes, your worship.
Please proceed.
Commissioner Nelson, when this pilot project was originally contemplated, I'll give you an example. I thought it was a single family home, single car garage, single driveway. And you've got a couple that live there. They've got 2 or 3 teenage youngsters. Now they're driving. So you park one car in the garage, you park one in the single lane driveway, and depending on the old meter that the high school son or daughter purchases, they can't get 2 cars in the single car drive. I thought originally that this was going to be an opportunity for a single family homeowner to purchase additional space in front of his or her home to accommodate that. So if you're not parking over the sidewalk, will that be part of the pilot to look at that scenario as well, where you someone that may have 2 or 3 cars can't park them? Can they get that spot directly in front of their home?
Commissioner Nelson, please.
Through the chair, I'll answer first, then I may defer to Mr. Dunford to help supplement. But my understanding is that obviously, yes, this will all be looked at. The challenge would be is the ability to reserve that specific spot right out front would be challenging. I think it's more from a zone perspective in which you issue a permit for within a zone or on a street. And the challenge also comes that nothing necessarily dictates because you have that permit that you're guaranteed a spot, because there's still legal parking spots and it's first come, first serve. So, you can't deny other people the ability to park there because we'd be chasing our tails to run out with tow trucks to remove the vehicles that are parked in those spaces. So from that, it's all those types of things that are being looked at and trying to narrow in and look at what other municipalities are doing and confirm that in comparison with the challenges that come out or the questions that arise during our consultation and during the pilot program.
So just to conclude, your worship, in my last 30 seconds,
34
34 seconds, I am going to support the amendment for all of the reasons that the councillor had mentioned. And secondly, because I think Commissioner Nelson has developed a workaround so we can still retain the money and still get 3 zones. So I thank Councillor Bremer for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Riel, please, and Councillor Duguay.
Through the chair, I'm going to support the amendment for several reasons. I'm finding the work by this consultant to be subpar. When I asked a question last week of Director Boland, if one of the things that they used was the issuing of parking tickets, and he said yes. I find the work that's being done by this consultant, they did not consult with any constituents. They did not consult with any councillors. And certainly, if they've had this on their file since 2023, and this is the best they can come up with. But the one thing that really bothers me is being put in a box that if you don't pass this, and we were given this last week, marching to a date at the end of the month, then you're going to lose the HAP funding. So my question to Commissioner Nelson, please explain to me what's happening with the HAP funding, because what I'm hearing is 2 different things here. Yeah, there was a drop dead date by the end of the month, but you're going to have to go back if this amendment goes through and reconfigure this whole thing by the end of the month. Or is the time frame that you're giving us the end of the month, not the drop dead date? Actually, there is some way of going around this to still preserve the HAP funding but make this work.
Commissioner Nelson, please.
Through the chair. So again, the commitment that has been made, and in fairness to the consultant hasn't had this since 2023. The city was given the direction from council to review 3 pilot areas as a result of that report in 2023. Following when we get into 2024, staff were busy in terms of making the half funding applications. Obviously, we weren't successful in our first round of the half funding applications. We were successful in the second round of the half funding application, and this was one of our commitments under that half funding. So we're in the process of doing it. The consultant RFP went out last fall. That was simply a condition that staff were struggling with resources for us to try to get our planning staff amped up to meet the requirements. Staff out of our transportation division were aiding our planning divisions to deal with permits, etc. As a result, the RFP went out last fall. The consultant was hired. The consultant developed the 3 areas, did the inventory on it, made the recommendations for the 3 areas to come forward, and thus where we're at at this point to get council to approve the 3 areas. If it's council's will to remove the parklands, as we indicated, we believe we have a proposed solution that will allow us to keep the timelines for the end of the month. Following that, again, what the main desire here is to get the pilot started. Again, the purpose of the pilot is to do just that, the consultation, the feedback from the public, and that will all inform what we put forward to council as part of any recommendation for a permanent program.
Through the chair to Commissioner Nelson, when you're putting this project or this process in place, the complaints are going to come to councillors, not to staff and not to the consultant. So just like we've seen this week, we're inundated with a bunch of emails and phone calls and videos and whatever from constituents that are upset. None of that went to staff and none of it went to a consultant. It came to us. So this pilot project is going to be more problematic for me as a city councillor, because we're going to be inundated with a whole bunch of complaints that the system is not working. And you're saying, well, we have a period of 1 year for this pilot project. By that time, my phone will be ringing off the hook. My computer will be probably blown up by that time with emails and a lot of dissatisfied people with the process. So I think there should have been some consulting going on with the constituents and certainly with us about this whole process.
Any further, Councillor Real? Councillor Duguay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have opportunity to speak with Councillor Beamer Sunday evening. Councillor Beamer, thank you for that conversation. I had opportunity to speak earlier today with Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner Nelson, thank you. I will admit, when I first considered this motion, it wasn't one I was prepared to support. However, I am prepared to I'm prepared to consider the removal of the study area predicated upon the fact that it does not jeopardize our abilities to continue with our half funding. But I want to be very clear. The parking realities in the Parkland subdivision will not go away as a consequence of this decision. The parking of vehicles in that subdivision are, unless I'm mistaken, are by the persons and living in the neighborhood. So it's a thorny issue, Councillor Beamer and Councillor Haker. You will be dealing with whether or not this pilot project continued. I would strongly encourage that neighborhood to consider, as Councillor Crowley said, to consider, and I think Councillor Chica also referenced calendar parking, because currently you have narrow road allowances and people are allowed to park on both sides of the road. So you'll park on either side of the road. And perhaps as a consequence of this, maybe through TTC, Councillor Real, Councillor Vasiliadis, I'm not wanting to give you more work, but this is a matter that maybe TTC can consider But I am prepared to support my colleagues in this instance. But just as a sort of reality check, the narrow road allowances, winter conditions, cars parked on the side of the road will not go away. And we're still going to be faced with the dilemma that a bus, an emergency vehicle might not, under certain circumstances, be able to continue through this roadway network. And with that in mind, Mayor Leal, it may be a matter that TTC can consider, but I hear my colleagues loud and clear. And I also wanted to say, for the benefit of residents, I just didn't have opportunity to respond to all the emails, but I considered them all and did a quick drive. And I am familiar with the neighborhood, and I do appreciate their concerns. Thank you.
Any further, Councillor Vasiliadis, please?
Yeah, no, I just want to show my support to Councillor Beamer. He knows his constituents, and I trust in that. Yeah, I've driven around that neighborhood too, and there is problems there, but the idea is let's not make the problems worse by putting a pilot project there. And through you, Mayor, to Commissioner Nelson, just as a follow-up, we've kind of gone around the table and we've almost answered this question, but I'm not quite. But what is the mechanism at the city or the city have to work with neighbors with this pilot project if it isn't working? Is there some mechanism that, other than call your counselor, is there another mechanism like
Commissioner Nelson, please?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Vassiliadis, for the question, because it would be an opportunity, and I would strongly recommend that any of the councillors, if you get questions, you get concerns from the constituents, you forward it on or give them the links under Connect PTBO or the city's website that the city is using to collect that data and that information, so that, you know, at the end of it, it is an informed process, and we have the ability to review and deal with those. And if they are challenging issues, there's nothing saying that if it's a challenge as a result of the permit parking, that's one of the things that would be built into it, is the ability to cancel it. So, you know, if there's a permit parking location that is causing those challenges or problems, and they're valid problems and issues, it would be built in. It's built into the terms of the permit that we have the ability to cancel that permit if it's causing those challenges. So that opportunity would be there. Yes.
That's great. Thank you.
Anything further, Councillor Vasiliadis? I have a question for Mr. Reyna. Mr. Reyna, if this amendment gets approved tonight, how do we deal with the half people? Do we go back to the tomorrow to say that our half application has been amended to reflect this? And I'll play the devil's advocate for a moment. What happens if they say no, that you got to keep going forward with the original proposal under half?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I was thinking of exactly on those lines, because whether to go and poke the bear is the right thing, or so we will. I will speak to my connections there, and then we will make a decision whether it's advisable to go there. And again, I was doing some homework. There's nothing to hide. I think it's better to keep them in the loop instead of later on somebody telling them and giving them a surprise. So most likely we will go back to them and say that the model is still there. It's only we tweaked it a bit, but as per their requirements are concerned, we are still meeting it.
Mr. Reyna, after you make your inquiry in a timely fashion, if you could get back to members of council with regards to the response.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you very much. We have all the amendment is now on the board. It's been moved and second. We'll go to a vote. And that is carried. Councillor Beamer will also amend the bylaw. That has to be amendment when we get to that. So, Mr. Clerk, sorry, Councillor Burke.
We're on the main motion, correct?
We are.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. so many of my questions last week were focused around.
We just got to get the main motion on the floor for
Yeah,
discussion.
I think we moved it. I think I moved it with someone
Been
else.
moved. Okay, we're
Yeah.
good. Go ahead.
Time start. So I think so much of last week's questions were around the idea of the actual zone itself. I had some changes based on my ward that I would have liked to see, but I understand why that can't happen. But I'm going to take this opportunity to ask the questions about the program in general right now in this time, because there's still some gray area in my head about how this is going to roll out. And I lived in Toronto for a long time and I survived. We didn't even have driveways. You think parking is bad here? It's like you wouldn't even believe it. I would print off before it was attached to your license plate. I would print off a thing with a barcode, put it in the dash, and I'd have to sometimes circle my block for like 45 minutes to find a spot. Okay. And so when I'm looking at our pilot, the first question I guess I have is that I don't live in any of the zones. But if I wanted to go visit someone in zone 3, could I get an overnight pass for zone 3 and have a 24-hour pass on that road?
Through the chair, I'll take an initial attempt at this, but I may refer to Manager Dunford for some supplement. But we did have a brief discussion about just this today, in which some of the thoughts of the initial point is that we may permit a 24-hour to somebody, but they have to have linkage to somebody that lives within the zone. So if you had somebody that was visiting out of town, the person was looking to get a parking permit for that visitor to come, it would only be available though for like a 24-hour period. It would not be available for an extended period of time.
Thanks. And my comments there is because we've had so much emphasis around this table about economic development. And when I talk to business owners in the city, they say that the number one thing that they want for them to thrive and for the downtown to thrive is to have people come downtown. And so when I go to Toronto and I go to stay at my brother's house overnight, he fills out the app for my license plate and I'm able to park on his street because he only has one spot. I'm able to park on his street overnight without getting a ticket or getting towed, and I'm able to stay over in Toronto and go out to restaurants and go to events. And I think that's extremely important. And I don't know how Hotspot app is going to cross-reference any of my information in a simple way to know that I have a connection to a certain address. I don't know. I don't think that's reasonable. But I would just like to say that I think it's important for these spots to be available, definitely the 24-hour spots, to be available for anyone. That's how I would use it. I have a big driveway. It fits both of my cars. But when I want access to street parking is when I have family come. And when there's 2 or 3 extra cars coming to my house, I'd like to have my family that lives in Toronto and elsewhere have the ability to get a 24-hour pass and know that they can park while they're visiting without getting a ticket or getting towed. And when I talked to Director Boland, it seemed like yes, please. When I talked to Director Boland, it seemed to me that this program was based, you only had access to get the on-street parking if you had the address attached to it. So I'm not asking any questions. I'm just putting it out there that, in my opinion, I think that at least the 24-hour passes everyone should have access to them. My second question, Mr. Mayor Leal, through you, maybe to Mr. Freeman as our treasurer. The one thing that I didn't hear anything about is the revenue of this versus the cost of enforcement. In my naivety, I think it's going to be a different scenario for us to have to go now and enforce because, I have calendar parking on my street. So you can see who's allowed to be there and who's not. Easy. You don't have to circle the streets a lot. But in this program, you're going to have physical staff having to go through every one of those zones all the time and enforce whether or not people have their permits. So can someone explain to me if we've analyzed the revenue that we're going to bring into this versus the cost that it's going to cost out of our tax base to support enforcing it?
Mr. Freeman, please.
Your Worship, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to provide much insight in terms of the revenue. I mean, the enforcement's about compliance at the end of the day. It's not about the amount of revenues. It's really about compliance. So I think that the anticipation or the expectation from your comments that it would even be a cost neutral or a cost recovery, I think that's probably optimistic. So I might have to punt the question back to my colleagues here. Just
I mean,
in
I'll
terms
just
of-
I'll just take my time back because I think I have a little bit of time left and I don't want to have it be eaten up by an answer. But you know, as much as I support something like this coming to Peterborough, I don't think I can support this because to me as a counselor, there's no understanding on my end whether or not we're going to get hit with a giant tax increase in terms of having to enforce this. There's no clarity on that from my end, and there's no clarity on my end whether or not residents in my zone will be able to use it like I've seen it used successfully in other cities. This seems to be different in terms like it has to be attached to the address, so I don't think I'll support it. Thank you.
Councillor Real, please, and Councillor Baldwin.
Through the chair to CEO Reyna, maybe you can explain this HAP funding to me. Because you said you're going to have to go back to the funder and explain to them what's going on. So I make an assumption that the city made an application to the HAP fund that they were going to do a pilot project for permanent parking. And I don't know if the nuances was in it was three pilot areas. And now you're going to have to go back and say, well, there's two, but we're splitting one. Can you give me some sort of comfort here of what you're doing? You say you're going to go to your people that you have can talk to, because I'm trying to figure out this HAP funding, because they wouldn't have had any of this data that we have here tonight making a decision of the pilot areas. You just made an application that you want to do a project on the parking. Is that right for me?
Mr. Reyna, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's right. Again, at the end of the day, it's entirely up to them whether they see it as a go ahead or they see it as a change what was submitted, that this was a change in the application. So because there are a lot of other asks which we have told them that which are linked to the housing acceleration fund. So this is just one of the project there. So but I can tell you that they are watching they are like a hawks. That's why they have taken away the funding from CDR 1 and other places. So this is the best I can do. I can talk to them because the model is a little bit twisted, but at the end of the day, it should be, I'm pretty certain that it should be acceptable to them. But what is the outcome? I cannot give you a definite answer whether it will be yes or no.
Councillor Baldwin, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I respectfully acknowledge what Councillor Burke is saying, but I think his decision with respect to this motion is a year out. Unless we support the project that's a pilot, we'll never get the information back on which we can make an informed decision. So I am going to support it, but I do want to thank Councillor Burke for bringing forward the ideas and his experience from Toronto. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Duguay, please.
I'm going to try to do this in 30 seconds. Commissioner Reyna, will the pilot project, once it's completed, will it provide to council a summary of revenue, expenditures, and administrative matters?
Mr. Reyna, please.
I will, through you, Mr. Chair. So I will defer it to the Commissioner Nelson, because again, it's at the end of the day, other places where they have done it, the revenue to look at this project as a avenue of generating revenue is not the right term. The way the CFO has said, it's about the compliance. It's not that the people will be standing on those lanes and the enforcement officers and looking for that who's at default. So, but at the end of the study, I'm pretty sure that we will look into those aspects too.
I don't, Your Worship, supplemental, I'm satisfied with that response, but to what Councillor Burke was saying, that when it's completed, it would be helpful and purposeful for our decision-making purposes that we get an understanding of what it may have cost, what are some of the enforcement realities, is it revenue neutral or not? I would look forward to that information. I see it as an opportunity to appropriately allow for meaningful street parking, and it may or may not generate revenue. That's what I see. So thank you.
Thank you very much through you, Your Worship. Just to contribute to the conversation, I as well lived in Toronto for most of my working life and was a downtowner and held parking permits. So, I'm hearing, and I had people stay overnight and get overnight passes, but I purchased my 6-month or 1-year permit for my home, and the cost of that would change from year to year. And I think the reality is our goal is to become cost neutral by how we set the rates for the purchaser of the permit. That will bring in what is necessary to be able to enforce with the lens of compliance. So I'm sure that will be part of the study and part of the projection that's shared with council. What the rate would be for a 6-month parking permit holder, and for 1 year what it would be, and all of that would be factored in by the rate that is set, what the enforcement costs will be. So, I'm looking forward to the results of the pilot and what it can bring us and what we can expect to have to pay to be cost neutral. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments? Mr. Radon, I have a question. My understanding is how the half funding worked. We made an application for half. It was accepted, but the half funding is broken into component pieces. Each component piece has a funding allocation to it. We must report on each component piece, and if you don't hit the criteria or the commitment we made on the component piece, the federal government could claw that money back, like they've done in other communities across Canada. Is that the way half works?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's my understanding, but I will defer it to Commissioner Freeman because his group is.
Your Worship, I believe you've got a very accurate grasp on how the funding opportunities work. There were 7 initiatives. The amount allocated to the on-street parking permit system was $300,000. That was the component here that we're talking about of the half funding.
So, Mr. Freeman, if I could follow up that, if the government of Canada senses that we're not compliant, they have the ability just to claw back the total amount or a portion of it.
Your Worship, I would agree with that. It does put a larger portion at risk, and we have heard that in other communities. So I think that there is some risk here in terms of we need to make sure we're doing our bit to continue to be eligible for the funding envelope.
I appreciate the clarity from you, CEO Rena, and from Mr. Freeman. Any further comments? Councillor Vasiliadis, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. In this particular area with Zone 3, the most complaints we get is really traffic and parking. So I don't know if more parking again will increase good neighborly relations in that area. And I mean, our zone's so big that we can split it in 2 now. So I don't know if I like that or not, but I do have a quick question for Commissioner Nelson. And we talked about this in some of the discussion during the amendment talk. But for example, up at Hewitt, Hewitt's right next to James Strath. They came to me with a petition. I was able to present it, and then a survey was done for that area for calendar parking, and that whole process went through. But the majority of people on the street wanted it. Had you ever thought of taking that approach really to this instead of doing the entire zone? Whenever we pass a bylaw, we do a survey. We look at the percentage of people that want it, and then we move forward or you don't. Was that ever under consideration in looking at neighborhood by neighborhood or street by street instead of more of a zone?
Mr. Nelson, please.
So again, I'll start. I may defer to Manager Dunford here to help augment, but the intent here is to again look at what is a reasonable area that you can offer those permit parking locations and have a reasonable ability to provide that permit parking. I know, and again, the challenge here is how large the zones are. And I know in certain circumstances, we're looking at the possibility of a zone just being maybe narrowed to a street, right? Versus another area that might have a zone that has multiple streets within it, because maybe there's some streets that don't have very little legal parking area. simply because there's either a lot of driveways or the street, again, is very narrow. It's things of that nature that all factor into it. And so from that perspective, again, this is all part of the pilot study and capturing that feedback and the comments from the public. What you're commenting, if we did it on a, street by street perspective, it would obviously take longer and more effort. In this circumstance, we're just doing a larger area at a all at one case. But I will defer if Manager Dunford has anything that he would like to add to that.
Dunford, please.
He's good. He thinks I hit it, so I'm doing okay.
Anything further, Councillor Vasiliadis?
Yeah, just a quick question too with, so what I'm to understand
You're
is.
just on your next 3 minutes.
That's fine.
Good.
That's going slower than Councilor Baldwin said. That's good. All right. But so my understanding is each household can have up to 3 permits, and you're going to max out at 75% in that particular area. Is that right? And so I'm looking at one particular area within the zone that has 20 houses. So if you take 20 times 3, you're looking at 60, but if you take 75% of that, that's 45 potential cars. Am I right on what I'm reading there? Would that be potential for that many?
Mr. Nelson.
Through the chair, again, I'll come back in which I think each area will be looked at from the densities that it currently has, and whether 3 is available for each residence will be something that will be looked at, and that will come out as part of the pilot. Because again, as you say, if all of a sudden, if we're overwhelming and there's just not that many available spaces, then we're just simply going to hit complaints because people have bought a permit but can never park anywhere because the space just isn't available. So those are things that the consultant and staff will be looking at in terms of the densities that are available and what is available in coordination with the densities of the housing, and that we can offer a reasonable number of permit parking spaces, and those permit parking spaces actually be available when people come home to try and park there. Because again, what we don't want to have happen is basically issue a permit, but people come home and never have an ability to park anywhere because they're already all gone. Because if you have, you can't sell out at 100%. That's what the whole component of selling maximum up to 75% of that, because you need 25% for just rolling people that are there to park for various other reasons, right? Not necessarily just because, but they're visiting or they have other business in the area. So,
thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Anything further on this item? We'll go to a vote. And that is carried. Bylaws, Mr. Nelson, I just have a quick question. So bylaw 11B, which is 26-027, being a bylaw to amend a bylaw related to parking. This bylaw will now reflect the amendment that was made on item 10H. Would that be correct?
To the chair, I apologize. Can you just speak to the bylaw again that you're speaking of?
It's bylaw 11B 26-07, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 09136, a bylaw for the regulation of parking in the city of Peterborough. My question is, will this this would have to reflect the amendment that was made on 10H? Would that be correct? With the elimination of the one area?
To the chair, I don't think there's anything in that speaks specifically to the areas. It's just making a few tweaks to the bylaw itself in terms of operation and advising who has authority and updates to it, and then making a minor tweak to the offset for parking near a driveway. So it doesn't name the specific, and I'm just going to look to my colleague here and confirm that he agrees with that. He says he does. So it doesn't name specifically the parking areas at the permit. or
I
the-
appreciate that. We just wanted to reassure Councillor Beamer. So.
Yeah.
Councillor Real, I saw your hand. Yes.
Through the chair, on bylaw 11A, which is 26026, that's being repealed, 1899. Can I have question from Commissioner Potts? And looking at the bylaw, certainly I went back and viewed the video of October the 14th, 2025, and there was a commitment by that night by CEO Reyna to do a candidate search for the position of the chief building officer. So I assume that has been done. And this bylaw that I'm reading here is the replacement of the former CBO with the new CBO and the deputy CBO and then the inspectors for the city of Peterborough. Am I right in that the repealing of bylaw 18, whatever it was, is being replaced by this one with the new CBO, the deputy CBO, and the inspectors? Have I got that right?
Your worship, I would, Commissioner Nelson's department includes the office of the chief building official, and I would defer to my colleague, Mr. Reyna, for any involvement that he's had. Thank you.
Mr. Reyna, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I don't have any involvement in the hiring of the CBO. That's with the HOD. So I will defer it to the Commissioner Nelson, what protocols he have done it. So I don't go, I'm not in the hiring of the CBO when I see. So whatever he deems fit, necessary as the needed. So he has taken those decisions. So I will defer it to him.
I guess the clarity that I want here on this bylaw is that the old bylaw 18, whatever the number was the former CBO, the deputy CBO, and the inspectors. This new one is the new CBO, the deputy CBO, and the inspectors that work for the city of Peterborough. And when I said I went back and viewed the video of the 14th of October 2025, when we had a discussion about this under the Municipal Building Act, that the municipal council has the authority to choose a CBO. That was the point that I was trying to make. Is that what this bylaw is doing here? Is that this is the candidates, these are the people, and this bylaw, this new bylaw 26009, whatever it is saying that these are the candidates and these are the people that are going to be the CBO, the deputy CBO, and the inspectors for the city of Peterborough. Am I right in that?
Mr. Reyna, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's absolutely right, sir.
Okay, I just want some clarity.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So if I could have someone move bylaws 26-026 to bylaw 26030, please. Councillor Achika, Councillor Burke, comments or questions? We'll go to a vote. And that is carried. Other business? Other business. Councillor Burke, please.
Mayor Leo, thank you. And I think I already gave everyone the preamble, but I am going to move a motion on behalf of my constituent who came here and spoke to us. And I'm satisfied in hearing that you're going to meet with everyone about this tomorrow, and that's great. But our constituent reached out to us as the ward councillors at 5:15 tonight and asked us to put forward this motion, which Dave spoke to. So I'm just going to move it. The new business motion is that city staff work to accommodate the St. Patrick's 5K run/walk March 15th and grant a permit. And I can have it circled here for the clerk. Did explain on the phone call as I
had a
was
seconder here just to thank you. Councillor.
as I was putting on my tie, I did explain to the constituent that it would be better to do it at general committee at our next cycle. it wouldn't require a 2/3 majority. We could give people the heads up, but Dave mentioned to me that with the timing of our council cycle, that the race is happening next week, and it was very time sensitive to do so, and that's why I'm moving it forward. Thank you.
Councillor Baldwin on this item.
Yeah, Your Worship, I appreciate the motion from the councillor. Again, it's one of those ones where we're asked to approve the permit this evening without being party to tomorrow's meeting that you're convening with whoever the officials are. So, without all that information, Your Worship, I would have a hard time right now supporting the motion because the meeting about which you spoke has not taken place. And I have every confidence that your meeting tomorrow will come to fruition, and then a decision will be made. That's the correct decision, but I can't support the motion because we're missing information. Respectfully, thank you.
Councillor Burke.
Mayor Leal, thank you. I'll just respond to that in totally understanding where the previous speaker is coming from, but it's much like the situation with the parking pilot. We're up against a rock and a hard place here. We've heard economic development and our independent businesses surviving is such an important thing. And to have something like this event, which is a calendar event, happen year after year and then not happen because of what we heard from the constituent, which I'm just hearing now on the fly as well, right? It's a tough situation, and I think that in these circumstances, I think we do owe it to our constituents to think outside the box. I'm sure that I'm not assuming that by passing this motion, it will mean that we're just going to go through with things that are costly on our end or that are going to put us at a liability risk. This is just to ensure that this event can happen. If we had more time, it would be great to have more time, but the reality is we just don't have more time. So whether or not that meeting goes well tomorrow, it doesn't really matter because we're not coming back to council to deal with it. So if it doesn't go well, our constituent and all the people involved in the race are left in the same position where there's been a lot of investment, private investment. There's been a lot of hours put into organizing this. There's people coming from all over to come to this race on whenever it is on the 17th. And, I believe that this is just one of those situations where we make it happen and we learn from our mistakes. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, can I get you to comment on this as we look at this?
Thanks, Your Worship, and our solicitor may wish to augment my comments here, but I can start. Bylaw 05- I think it's 083 delegates authority to the clerk position to issue an event permit for a road closure involving an event. Within that bylaw and the powers that are delegated, it's expected that the clerk's office would consult with departments, the subject matter experts, such as fire, police, EMS, public works, traffic, and so on. So that's just wanted to bring your attention that there is a bylaw, and this is under the delegated authority as to how, to this date, the permits have been issued and the consultation that has occurred. So it's through that process that the information received, as mentioned this evening, was that it'd be contrary to issue an event permit due to the safety issues. And the bylaw does contemplate that the clerk's position does have the ability to refuse an event permit. Having said that, if it's council's will to issue an event permit, then council certainly has the ability to do that. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and our solicitor may want to augment those comments.
Mr. Potts, please.
Yes, I think the last point first, that council has delegated the authority. A decision's been made pursuant to the delegated authority with input, particularly, I understand, from police, who would normally be administering the practical aspects of the road closure in terms of traffic control. But council retains its own jurisdiction. The challenge with the wording of the motion is that it's a little fuzzy. If council is going to authorize the issuance of a permit, despite Mr. Kennedy's advice, then the motion should be that council hereby authorizes a permit for temporary road closure with the particulars to be inserted in terms of date, place, time, particulars of the event, and the name of the permittee. Thank you.
Go back to Councillor Burke, please. Did you have anything further? Okay. Councillor Chica.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, through you. You know, what struck me after the delegation was just the importance of being reasonable when we had conducted a process that authorized this. And it's our missive, our error to have given the green light in a meeting. And you know, in good faith with our business community in organizing something like this, with the amount of money that is involved in investing in something after having been given the green light. In terms of good faith and professionalism as our governance in the municipality, I think this is a situation where we need to look at our process and that, you know, if there was an issue at the time that was that grave, it would have been raised. And certainly the purpose of the meeting tomorrow would be to iron anything out that would need to be tweaked in order for it to proceed appropriately. But tonight is our opportunity as a council to say, yes, you know, if there had been an issue, it should have been raised when the opportunity, at the appropriate opportunity, according to our own process. So I think in good faith to this business owner and to the community that has committed to this race, for us to do something at the last minute like this, it feels unprofessional to not consider the circumstances and where we missed something, and to give the green light and to work with the elements in the meeting tomorrow to make sure that everything is safe. Thank you.
Any further, Councillor Duguay, please.
Briefly, Your Worship, hearing what Commissioner Potts stated, and I think that is necessary. The spirit intent of the motion, I think, is self-explanatory, but I believe we would have to override the procedural, the delegated authority in this instance to permit the St. Patrick's 5K run and walk to occur, the route being from Parkville Road to the north, Lansdowne Street to the west. I think we have to be specific because I don't think we can proceed just on the basis of the wording of the language, but I understand what Councillor Burke and Councillor Chica are asking. So my question, Mr. Clerk, can we arrive at some appropriate wording?
I just want to say, I think we should have a clean motion. If it's council's wish that we can't grant a permit for the run, then let's say it and just quickly pass that if that's what the intent is. And that's a much cleaner motion.
I totally support a clean motion. I'm just reading what the constituent gave me, and
Yeah.
I'd welcome any suggestions to change this. I think Councillor Crowley's going to speak to that. I would support any changes to just making sure that we continue to talk. Dave said that he was willing to not set up at the parking lot, so I think that he has a willingness to work with us. So I'd be happy to change the wording.
And those are kind of those are some items that we could have a conversation about tomorrow. Sorry, Councillor Chica, your hand was up, and then Councillor Crowley.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'm wondering if we could amend the wording then at this time, according to what Commissioner Potts had just stated.
Well, it might be easier, Councillor Burke, to withdraw that one and just simply move a motion that we give them the permit. One straightforward.
Oh.
I mean, if that's the will, let's do it from that perspective.
Yeah, I'd love to just give them the permit. I'll withdraw and then I'll withdraw the motion, please, sir.
Yeah.
Other business?
Yeah. You have the floor.
Yeah, other business, what you said.
Okay. And we have a seconder for that. Councillor Chica. Further comments, Councillor Baldwin?
Yeah, Your Worship, I don't think anybody around the table doesn't want to support the initiative. But I can't help but wondering what the safety issue was. Ordinarily, this is an event that's occurred, according to the delegate, for the last 12 years. So either the legislation's changed or the risk factors have changed. And I don't want to use the word irresponsible, but there must have been a reason why this was flagged by the clerk's office in consultation with the subject experts. I think it's reasonable to wait until such time as that gets clarified at the meeting tomorrow. And at that time, I believe the clerk would be able to make a decision, yay or nay, with the delegated authority. Would that be correct?
Clerk,
To
please.
you, your worship, to Mr. Kennedy, if everything gets resolved tomorrow because of your delegated authority, you could issue the permit?
Clerk.
Thanks, your worship, and thank you for the question. Essentially, the information that we've received for the event cited safety concerns, and essentially there has been a decision made to not issue the permit just through the delegated authority issued to the position under the bylaw. Thank you.
Councillor Baldwin, just what I've been able to glean today, one of the safety issues was the Spaghetti House parking lot issue. So tonight that has been addressed, but I don't know that. I just heard anecdotally that that was one of the chief safety concerns.
Well, respectfully, your worship, the clerk has heard the same explanation from the delegate.
Yes.
And the clerk so far has not indicated to council that there's been a change in his professional opinion based on what the delegate said. And I do value the professionalism of Mr. Clerk and for our senior staff. So I'm having an issue with the permit was not issued for a specific reason. I'm not convinced. I'm not assured right now, based on a delegate's delegation to council, that impediment has been removed satisfactorily to the clerk. If it was, we wouldn't be having this decision right now. So respectfully, I'd like to see the event go on, but I'm not comfortable approving something because there are some things that we're not privy to right now, other than the professional opinion of the clerk, who at this point in time has not issued the permit. So respectfully, I'm going to have to say I can't approve it this evening. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Burke, then Councillor Crawley.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lee. I'll just say that first of all, this is something that I'm just hearing about on the fly and responding to on the fly. I have not been at any of the meetings. I literally just heard about this at 5:15, so take that for what it's worth. But given what just in terms of what the last speaker said, given what Dave said to us at council, I don't think there was a back and forth between him and the clerk. I think there were meetings, he said, in February where he responded to the plan and he made sure that at that time the plan fit with the various fire and police, and he told us that there was no issues at that time. What I think has happened to trigger this last minute ask is that there wasn't a back and forth with the clerk. The clerk just ruled that the permit was not going to be issued. And that's why Dave came to us at the last minute to say, listen, we've got all this planning. I have all this personal investment into this race. We need this permit. And there's no time to have that discussion back and forth. I'm completely willing to not have people set up at the Spaghetti House parking lot. That's fine. But these certain ways that the race has always been run is the way we're doing it. And, I don't think there was an opportunity for him to have a back and forth with the clerk. I think he just received the notice from the clerk that the permit was not given to them, and that's why he's scrambling, and we're all scrambling. And I thank those on council to have the idea to just give them the permit. I think that's the cleanest way to do it. I know Councillor Crowley was typing something out in terms of trying to save the motion and wordsmith it differently, and I'd like to hear from him. But at the end of the day, no matter what anyone's professional opinion is, sometimes we have to make decisions based on circumstance. Sometimes we have to make decisions from a bird's eye perspective and look at the amount of people that are going to be affected. And to me, there's going to be a lot of people affected here. We've heard of the investment. We've heard of all the people that are going to come for this race. And, you can't, this is something that has to happen year after year. And in this case, we're going to support them to do it this year and to continue on. And hopefully next year during this permit process, we can have more of a time period to negotiate the back and forth if there has been any changes in how the race has to be done. In this case, there's not enough time to do that.
Councillor Crowley, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if we can do we have wording for the motion? Is it simply just because I have wording that I could suggest if you wish?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just hearing some of the comments from our city solicitor. I can ask my colleague to post this, and I may look to our city solicitor just to confirm some of the wording. That council hereby authorizes a temporary road closure permit to be issued to Dave Dame of Runner's Life for the purpose of a 5K run and walk event on March 15th, 2026, to be held immediately prior to the start of the St. Patrick's Day parade. I would look to city solicitor in the event that there's anything further he would suggest.
Mr. Potts, please.
That seems to cover the date, the time, the permittee. It might be, I'm not sure if I heard the reference to George Street or the part of the road. That might be helpful to specifically identify the road is to be temporarily closed.
Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship, and further to my colleague's comments, as I understand it, the event was contemplated to be held between Lansdowne Street and McDonald Street here on George. So we can add that.
The Deputy Clerk is adding that.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I just wasn't sure what we were voting on. I think that looks fantastic. Thank you so much, and thank you to the clerks. I know that they ended up using their delegated authority, and they did what they thought was completely proper. And this isn't a judgment against staff. It's just going to go with my gut here. Thank you.
It might be three times. So I'll back off if I'm not within the parameters of that, Your Worship. One more. Oh, that's really great, Your Worship. Thank you for that. I heard Councillor Berg say that, you know, the problem was the parking lot, Spaghetti House parking lot. In our previous conversations, I heard our city solicitor, I believe I heard our city solicitor indicate that it has something to do with police safety. It would be really nice to know if the only impediment is the Spaghetti House parking lot that the councillor and Mr. Dame said we'll get rid of, or is it something greater than that from a policing safety perspective? I don't think that's been clarified. And I wish someone would clarify it for me. I don't think it's going to change my mind, but I'd like to know what's the issue?
Mr. Potts, please. Or Mr. Clerk, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Clerk, and I think the letter that sets out the paragraphs about the full road closure would be helpful.
Thank you, Your Worship, for that. And yes, to the question, just to clarify, there are various staff with technical expertise that were involved in this, whether it's police, fire, traffic. So there's a variety of people that formed this committee, and that was the the opinion there that there are safety issues with things such as the the bidirectional flow of the foot traffic or the runners. So it's more than just the initial issue that was mentioned this evening about the parking lot and the use of that. There are other considerations in there. This is a rolling road closure. It's not a full street closure. So thank you.
So through your worship to the clerk, I appreciate the clarification. And all I would say is, as great as the events were over the previous 12 years, things change over time. We've had lots of discussions around here over the last several years about insurance and having $5 million of liability insurance. Our staff, our professional staff through the clerk's office has indicated that there's an issue. And nothing through our discussions has convinced me that we should be usurping the power of the delegated authority by the clerk. In this case, he's doing what he's been professionally trained to do and advise council. So respectfully, I can't support it.
And it will take 2/3. And that's carried. I just have a quick item of new business, and it relates. We are the city of Peterborough. We are seeking feedback from residents through a public survey from March 9th to April 10th regarding our seniors snow clearing windrow program. You can get to do the survey. You go to https://www.connectptbo.ca/windrow-removal-program. And the consultation will focus on understanding community demands for windrow services, identify priority groups that may benefit most from the service, gathering input on a fair and workable and eligibility criteria, and collecting feedback on service expectation and potential fees. So this is a paid announcement. We encourage everybody to fill out the survey. Councillor Crowley. Ken.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to ask, this is just off the cuff, and this is to Commissioner Simonovskis. Recycling. I don't know if circular materials just hates the West End, or if we're all equally hated. But it seems like I'm getting an awful lot of complaints daily and weekly. And I know that there's nothing that your department can do because it's a provincial thing now. But I'm getting inundated with calls and emails from constituents, large swaths of streets just missing the recycling pickup. I know that the direction that I'm giving my constituents is, well, call the customer service number and call them and they'll get back to you. And I had somebody who called me and I said, you know what, you've dealt with this a few weeks now where they've maybe purposely missed him, jokingly I say, but I've called them and I've said, this is a counselor and I would really appreciate it if you would, maybe if you had a truck in the area, go back to Glen Forest and pick up all of the half the street that you missed. And we'll have somebody call you back in 24 to 48 hours. I had somebody reach out to me Friday morning. They said that, Thursday night, they said that their recycling hadn't been picked up. I said,
Councillor Crowley, I don't think your mic is on.
So anyway, so yeah. So long story short, what recourse do we have for everybody out there listening? I was just ranting about circular materials and your recycling. What sort of recourse do we have as a city, and what can we do for constituents other than potentially say, I don't know, call them and see if they'll get you?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have no recourse as a municipality. However, there was a motion from York Regions Council on behalf of their constituents and shared to all municipalities and AMO, specifically describing what you've just described that's happening, what seems to be all over the province.
Okay.
And calling the province to step in and do what they promised some 10 years ago through this extended producer process. So happy to support council on bringing forward any documentation to support a motion of that nature. And really it's putting it back into the province's court.
Yeah.
Unless they decide to redistribute it back to the municipalities.
So I'll talk to the clerk, because maybe that would be something that we could show our support for, because it's absolutely ridiculous how awful the collection is in the city right now. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Councillor Crowley. Someone like to move the confirmation bylaw? Councillor Vasiliadis, Councillor Beamer. We'll go to a vote. That's carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Crowley, Councillor Dugay. We'll go to a vote. That's carried. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, staff. Thank you, audience. We're adjourned.